of Andy.
My name is Victor. I'm a big fan of Apapa.
Hi, my name is Amy Liu. I'm a life member of Apapa.
Hi, I'm Maliha Mahmood and I'm representing Pakistani American Cultural Corporation today.
I'm Omar. I'm supporting Malia Mahmood and whatever she does.
Hi, I'm Douglas Shah. I'm a board member of Apapa Tri-Valley.
Hi, Nolan Chen. I'm a new board member and I live here in San Ramon.
Hello, I'm Lenore Du Lam, and I'm also a resident of San Ramon, a guest tonight and trying to learn a bit more.
Hi, I'm Lori Woodhouse, and I grew up in the Bay Area, and I'm becoming a big fan of Apapa.
Hi, I'm Naina Shastri. I'm an Indian classical dance teacher, guest here today. I'm also a member of the San Ramon Arts Advisory Council.
Hello everyone, my name is Hari Mankade. I'm the better half of Naina Shastri.
Hi, my name is Chu Yun Shao. I'm a resident of Dublin tonight. Is the reporter for tonight's event.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm Apapa Bay Area assistant. Nice to meet you guys.
Okay, thank you again, everyone. And we have more food. Just feel free to grab more food if you like. And one thing I want to talk about is Xinbo is we were the classmates in middle school. We met last year after more than 20 years.
Wow.
And I have a few things to talk about. First, if you're interested in a Apapa membership, if you're not a member yet, here's the membership form, so feel free to pick up one. And also here's the information what we did in the past, how we help kind of promote the API committee to get more involved. And another thing I'd like you to help me here is, this is our seventh civic leadership meeting. Every month we have a civic leadership, except the summer we want to have a break. And we start with the Lions Club, Kiwanis, Rotary, talk about those service club, talk about Chamber of Commerce. Then we invite the school board, and then later city council mayors, and assembly member, now the supervisor. In the future, we'll also invite the state senator and elected official from a special district. Most people may not know that those are the elected position. And also we'll invite a judge and district attorney to talk about something like a Brown Act. When you get elected, what you can do, what you should not do. And to help us improve our program, we have a survey here, and I hope everyone can help us kind of put in your feedback, let us know how this event goes to help us prepare for the future event. And without further ado, let's welcome the Control Costa County Supervisor, and you can sit there just a little bit more. Yeah, thank you so much, and Candice, and for accepting our invitation. I think today I don't want to be the one to introduce you because we already have an intern who worked with you for several months, Isabel. So let's welcome Isabel to introduce you. I think she knows much better about you than me, right? She's a great intern.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Hi everyone. As I said before, my name is Isabel, and I formerly interned for County Supervisor of District 2, Candice Anderson. It's a really long mouthful. And so, having worked with Supervisor Anderson, I can tell you that the really hard part, actually, one of the hardest parts about my job actually was telling people about where I worked, because when I told them, they weren't always very sure what her position meant. So for those of you in the audience who don't really know, I'm sure Supervisor Anderson can tell you more about her job, but just a quick preview of what she does. So there are 5 districts in Contra Costa County, and Supervisor Anderson oversees the 2nd district, of which it includes San Ramon, Danville, the unincorporated area of Alamo, Moraga, Lafayette, Orinda. It's a really large area, and when I say that she oversees this entire area, she actually really does oversee just about everything in this area, from really large, big picture issues like land use and land development projects to, like grievances from those in the community to like really things that you don't really think about unless you get to know her and get to know about the job. And what I can say about Supervisor Anderson is, most of all, what she stands for is she really cares about people, and I can personally vouch for the fact, by the way that she welcomed me into her office, and by everything that I've learned from her, that she is truly someone who really puts the people that she represents in her best interests, and she really, really cares about the people that she works for. And so without further ado, here is Supervisor Anderson. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. It is truly a pleasure to be with you, and I want to thank Isabel for that wonderful introduction. She was just a fabulous intern in my office. I depend heavily, especially during our summer months, to have our interns doing research on complex topics, going to meetings, providing me with minutes, and she did an amazing job. So I am going to talk to you a little bit about the county, and so I have some facts up here. Just basically, the county's budget is about $3.5 billion, and of that, about 1.6 of it is our general fund. And we do have a AAA bond rating when we need to borrow money for major capital improvement projects. And we're very cautious of keeping about 21, right now we're just over 21% in reserve, so about $295 million in reserve. There are just under 10,000 county employees. County population as of our last census, the 2010 census, was about 1.1 million people, and there are 19 cities in Contra Costa. And as Isabel mentioned, we are divided based upon regions and, more importantly, based upon population. So after every census, after the 2010 census, there was redistricting. And it was interesting how they redistricted. Formerly, District 3 came all the way and had the San Ramon Valley. And instead, this time, they decided to have District 2 take the San Ramon Valley and all of La Morinda. And then District 3, which is out in Brentwood, Antioch, Oakley, that area scoops down and actually has Diablo, Blackhawk, and unincorporated Danville in the Tassajara Valley. Now everyone says, oh, that was just how we could even out the population. That's what we had to do. Actually, more likely than not, it has to do with a project over here called Tassajara Parks, where the former supervisor of District 3 was very supportive of that project, and I think they wanted to make sure that you would be able to vote on it, because if that project passes, it requires a 4/5 vote of the Board of Supervisors. But they will all deny it. All of my fellow supervisors say, oh no, we were just trying to evenly distribute the population. And I was saying, and you know how Discovery Bay and Blackhawk are right next to each other. But even though we have this even distribution of population, we don't really have an even distribution of voters. And I'm very fortunate to represent an area of well-educated voters who stay very engaged in what is happening in the community, and they get out and vote. And so I have the largest number of registered voters in my district, just under 150,000 individuals. And so the big question that people always say is, well, what does a county supervisor do? And so we meet every Tuesday, and I always say except for when we don't meet, but usually 3 out of the 4 or 5 Tuesdays of the month, we meet at Martinez, and this is in our board chambers there. This year's chair is Federal Glover, and he represents District 5, newly elected Diane Burgess, Karen Mitchoff, who represents District 4, and then John Joya, who represents District 1. And so what I'd like to talk about a little is just what our cities do. And our cities are really amazing in Contra Costa County. You have an elected city council, and they do a fabulous job at doing parks, recreation, planning land use for their communities, traffic, transportation, all of those important things within a city. And so within all of the incorporated cities, I've got great city councils that I love working with. And the county does the same thing. We're sort of like the city council for unincorporated areas. And so the largest unincorporated areas in my district are Alamo. Excuse me, this clicker went faster than I did. And we'll go back. We have Alamo, of course, Canyon. How many of you have been to Canyon? Has anyone ever been to Canyon? Does anyone know where Canyon is? Canyon is a kind of an amazing community. It divides Moraga from Oakland, and it's an unincorporated area where a lot of people have sort of lived there off the grid for a long time. They don't want a lot of interaction with government, but they do have some services, and they have a very quaint and charming post office. And then Park Mead and Sarah Knapp are unincorporated Walnut Creek. And so for those communities, I get to do the planning, the land use, the parks, recreation, transportation issues, much as a city would. And it's not just me, the full board of supervisors gets to vote on those issues, but we tend to defer a little bit to the supervisor of that district when it comes to those issues. So each Board of Supervisor member of the board, we serve on a lot of different committees. And if you were to count these up, any given time I'm anywhere between 24 to 26 different committees. Most of these committees meet once or twice a month. And so we have some standing committees that I currently serve on. We serve as the Fire Board, District Board, the Housing Authority, all of us serve on that. I have a subcommittee of 2 that serves on our Contra Costa Health Plan Joint Conference Committee. Contra Costa has its own health plan as well as its own hospital medical system. Internal Operations Committee, the Family and Human Services Committee, Hiring, Outreach and Oversight Committee, and Mental Health Commission. So those are the boards, committees that I serve on that are directly with the county. And then I get to serve on these other regional counties, regional county and city committees as well. And so ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, which is the entire Bay Area, Central Contra Costa Solid Waste Authority, also known as Recycle Smart, that is a joint powers authority with the Loma Linda cities, Walnut Creek, Danville, and the county, which does garbage, recycling, reuse, and diversion from our landfills. I sit on our county's retirement system, and this is a fund that I'll be talking about a little bit, but it's something that when I took office I was very concerned because of the significant unfunded liability for the pensions for county employees. We're doing a little bit better. I serve on the Board of County Connection, the Doherty Valley Oversight Committee, and we'll be talking about that as well. East Bay Economic Development Alliance, our East Bay Regional Communication System, which is how we communicate in a disaster with police, fire, and our agencies as well. The Hazardous Waste Management Facility Allocation. And I also serve on something called LAFCO, which is the Local Agency Formation Commission. And I would recommend, Andy, someday you should have Luann Texera, who is the director of Contra Costa LAFCO, come and talk to you. It's a really interesting commission that makes all the decisions about annexations, and it monitors special districts, and she has a great presentation as well. I serve on a Pleasant Hill BART, Contra Costa Center JPA, a Joint Powers Authority Committee, Southwest Area Transportation Committee, overseeing transportation issues for the Loma Linda cities and San Ramon and Danville. Our San Ramon Valley Citizens Core Council that puts on our wonderful emergency prep fairs every other year. Street Smarts and Traffic Safety Transportation. Our Tri-Valley Transportation Council, and this is an interesting council that goes beyond Contra Costa's borders. It's with Pleasanton, Dublin, Livermore, San Ramon, Danville, and Contra Costa County, and we make transportation funding decisions for the whole 580, 680 corridor because, again, we're not an island. Just because you get outside of Contra Costa's borders doesn't mean the traffic's going to stop or it's going to be any different. So we work cooperatively with that. And the Traffics is the San Ramon Valley's school bus traffic mitigation program. In the Loma Linda area, they have a similar program. And then I serve as alternate on these other boards and committees. And so we have a lot of direct partnerships with the cities, and we provide a lot of the services that the cities don't. So as I mentioned, our cities do an amazing job with their parks, recreation, transportation, the issues right within their cities, but we provide all the animal services for every city except for Antioch that has their own animal services. So everything from the dog catcher to abusive animals to picking up the dead deer in the middle of the road, all of those things come in with animal services. We manage the Iron Horse Trail in the sense that the county owns it, but we work with East Bay Regional Park. We have a committee that oversees that. We have the County Sheriff's Department, which for Danville, they actually contract, as does Orinda and Lafayette. And so our sheriff deputies put on a Danville uniform, Orinda uniform, or Lafayette uniform, but they're still sheriff deputies. And as mentioned, Traffics and Street Smarts and our Citizen Core Council. And then these regional collaborations, many of which I already mentioned because I serve on those committees. And then here are some of the direct services that the county provides. And so there's a whole ag department, and the agriculture department make sure that people who are using lots of pesticides are properly trained, have permits before they go out and utilize those. We have an integrated pest management program in the county to ensure that we're doing the best ways to use the fewest toxic pesticides we possibly can. Agriculture also has weights and measures. So when you go to the gas station, your fuel pump is calibrated to make sure you're getting the fuel that you say you are. When you go into Target, it makes sure that whatever is rung up on the register, it matches, and there's a fine, and you can actually, what shows up on where you took the item off the shelf doesn't match up what reads on the register, there's a penalty to Target or any other store, not just Target. Assessor, of course, which assesses the value of everybody's property. Child support services, when parents are living separate, ensuring that the children get the support they need. Our clerk recorder, of course, is all the vital documents, anything from registering a birth certificate to getting a license to be married, all of our real estate documents. Coroner is part of the Sheriff's Department investigating deaths, District Attorney, Elections Office, Employment and Human Services, and this is the big one where we really are the safety net for the poor, for those who can't take care of themselves. And unlike other states, and most state and federal programs are administered through the county. So CalFresh is our food stamp program. CalWorks is how we help people get back to work, particularly parents with children. Medi-Cal is our low-cost health care insurance for children and for families who do not have sufficient means. Adult Protective Services, something that's become increasingly a problem throughout our county, throughout the country, is we have an aging population. Oftentimes, there are people who are just those horrible people who will call up and say, I'm the IRS, and if you don't write me a check right now, we're going to, levy against your property, those sort of things. But then what's the sad part is oftentimes it's a family member or a friend who thinks they're taking care of the parent, or they're taking care of someone else, and so they sort of feel like, well, I deserve, them to write a check for me. And so those are things that are investigated through our district attorney's office as well. And we have foster care and adoption, a desperate need for more foster care parents in our community. Environmental health does everything from make sure that this restaurant has the proper certification and that things are being done the way they are supposed to making sure public swimming pools are clean for swimming, and that our cesspools and our septic systems are properly working. We also have a major flood control department to ensure that in our rainy seasons we're okay. Emergency medical services, that's to make sure that throughout the county we have ambulances, we have first responders to help people when they are in need. Hazardous materials is what it sounds like. Our library system is a county-run system, although most cities supplement what the county provides. So San Ramon recently, just across the street, where there, that way, just opened up their newly restored library where they spent millions of dollars to make it their own. They spend money to keep it open a few hours. We give the set amount to every library within the county based upon a property tax that everybody pays. And then most cities do supplement, even creating their own buildings and then ensuring that they have additional hours. We have a robust mental health system to take care of those who are mentally ill in a variety of ways. Probation is for, of course, those criminal defendants who are, after their conviction, are released, but they still are under the supervision. A public defender, defending those who cannot afford a lawyer. We have a very robust public health department to ensure better, healthier lifestyles, everything from working on keeping tobacco products away from youth, alcohol away from youth, to air quality around where homes are being built, ensuring that we have safe parks. A tax collector is just what he sounds like. He's collecting your taxes. Great veteran services. And throughout the county, we have just an amazing veteran services program that helps those who are returning, and the weights and measures, which falls under our ag department. So something else we try to do is we really try to support the services of the cities. And so what I'm showing up here are some projects that I was able to help out a little bit with. Interestingly, when someone builds a house in an unincorporated area, they pay a park dedication fee. Well, in the county, we don't build many parks. We don't have enough big areas where we would need a park other than an Alamo. And so I found out when I came in office that we were just sitting on a lot of money. And so for Walnut Creek, as they redid their Larkey Park, I found $35,000 just sitting in a fund. $35 million would be a lot more fun. $35,000. Danville, I found about $25,000 that they could use for their bocce balls. Moraga, they created a little park in front of their town meeting hall. I found $85,000. San Ramon, this is the barn that is being restored right now at Forest Farms, and I found about $600,000 that the county just sort of had in a pot to be used for the benefit of those in the unincorporated area, so we turned it over to those cities that are providing those services. We like to make a lot of important decisions that will really help maintain, or I do anyway, the local control of our cities. And so what I've got up here, who knows what this is a picture of? Any ideas what this might be? Well, it looks like Tassajara, but it's actually Doherty Valley. This is what Doherty Valley looked like, used to be, when I moved here 22 years ago, when my husband grew up here. There was a little windy Doherty road that went through there, and I used to say to my kids when I would want them to stay awake until we got back for naps, who can count the cows, or who sees the black horse? So this is what Doherty Valley used to look like. And of course, this is what it looks like today. And so a little bit history about Doherty Valley. It was, just as we see here, beautiful open space ranch land. And so some developers came in, they wanted to buy the entire Doherty Valley, and they wanted to build houses. And so they talked to San Ramon and Danville, and both of them had kind of strict restrictions on what they might want to see if it were developed. So they went to the county and said, hey, how about if we build these homes? And the county said, sure, go ahead, do it. And so Danville and San Ramon sued the county and sued the developers, saying, no way, you can't bring in 10,000 homes this close because it's going to have too big an impact on San Ramon and Danville. And so back around 1999, 2000, we entered into something called the Doherty Valley Settlement Agreement, which governs the development of this whole Doherty Valley, and there's also a Doherty Valley specific plan. So parks, open space, wetlands, all of that were very carefully designed back then. And then we have something called the Doherty Valley Oversight Committee that used to meet more frequently. Now we meet about twice a year to ensure that as this was developed first by Windermere LLC, which was a division of Lennar, and then by Chappelle and now Toll Brothers, is following what we agreed to in that settlement agreement. And what happens is the county processes the whole development, and once a neighborhood is built, then San Ramon annexes, takes it into the city. This is not how I like to do things, and had I been on the Board of Supervisors, I would not have been supportive of this. A good example is a couple of years ago, a developer came to me from Moraga, and he said, I've got this car ranch property, it's unincorporated county, I want to build some homes in car ranch. What will you let me do? And I said, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk to Moraga. We're going to see, do they want to annex that land into the town of Moraga, and they'll decide what it's going to look like. And even if they don't want to annex you in, we're still going to talk to the town of Moraga to make sure that whatever is built there is something that's compatible, since they'll be providing most of the services. And with the Doherty Valley, it's made it a little challenging. Issues such as the closure of the old Doherty Road, which was part of the original settlement agreement. People who bought their homes knew it was going to be closed and turned into a bicycle pedestrian path, where nevertheless other people were very upset when it was closed, because that had been their shortcut to get to new schools, to get to work. And it's challenging because the city of San Ramon was stuck with the settlement agreement and with all of these requirements that made it very difficult to change that decision. We do some fun things. This is, if any of you go down the Iron Horse Trail, this is an Alamo. And an Alamo, it's unincorporated, and I have an appointed municipal advisory council that helps me make decisions for Alamo. So if you're ever on the Iron Horse Trail, on Alamo, just when you get to Hemi Avenue. This new park will be opening a week from Saturday, and it's just turned out beautifully. It's a fabulous place. There's a little playground here with a train theme. We have restrooms, place to fix your bikes, watering areas, a covered gazebo where you can picnic. It's a really fun respite spot on the Iron Horse Trail, and I was excited to have the Alamo MAC really wanting to see us move forward with that. In Alamo, we also just opened up some new bocce ball courts, again with my Alamo Municipal Advisory Council. As I mentioned, Alamo is one of the few communities where we do have really a revenue source, it's called R7, to pay for things like parks and, more importantly, the maintenance of parks. And what you might find in a lot of cities is they'll get money that's in a capital fund where they could build something, but you need to factor in the ongoing maintenance. And usually those capital funds that are fees paid by developers can't be used for maintenance. And so it always makes it challenging for cities and counties when they're trying to develop something. This is something that was just approved in an unincorporated area, and this is in Saranap, and this is called Saranap Village. And as most of you are probably aware, we have kind of a housing shortage in the state of California, and I think one of the latest studies I read said that for every 7 jobs we're creating 1 unit of housing. And so as a result, we don't have enough housing. Housing has gotten very, very expensive. And this is not an affordable housing project, but it will bring about 200 for sale and rental units to this unincorporated part of Walnut Creek that's called Saranap on Boulevard Way. Currently, it's sort of almost a light industrial area with old office buildings. And originally the developer wanted to make it, about 90 feet high. And then he came back and he made it about 70 feet high, and it was still too tall, and now at the highest points it's just around 50 feet, but most areas it'll just appear from the street to be about 3 stories high, and we're excited to see that coming forward. This is the project I was mentioning when I was talking about redistricting. This is Tassajara Parks. To orient you, if you're driving out Camino Tassajara in East Danville, this is Tassajara Hills Elementary School. This is the Mustang Soccer Complex as you're heading out Camino Tassajara. And so this project used to be called New Farm. Now it's called Tassajara Parks. It's outside the voter-approved urban limit line. And that's what makes it truly controversial. And under the voter-approved urban limit line, you can't build outside there unless the Board of Supervisors, by a 4/5 vote, makes a particular finding. There's a really overwhelming reason why it should be built, perhaps an agricultural benefit. Right now, the developer is suggesting that there's an agricultural benefit because not only will he be building these homes here, but he'll be creating some open space, which is over here on this side of Camino Tassajara. Right now, you can't build on that side, and anyway, it's already open space. So Danville is very opposed. San Ramon is very supportive. The East Bay Regional Parks District is very supportive because they will be the beneficiary of this open space here. I don't decide yet. It hasn't gone before the County Planning Commission. I have some serious reservations simply because we have an urban limit line for a reason, and to me, you've got to have a very compelling reason to agree to go outside it. From a planning standpoint also, when you've got homes that are, lovely homes here, normally you transition from, these are Black Hawk homes at Betancourt Ranch, you transition to larger lots rather than transitioning to ag space with tiny little lots with lots of homes. So stay tuned. That one, we don't have a planning commission date yet, but we're thinking it will probably not be this fall, probably next spring. It will go before the Planning Commission for Contra Costa's Planning Commission, and then eventually to the Board of Supervisors.
How many homes?
It's just under 100 homes. It's right around 100 homes. It's gotten bigger and smaller, and so not a lot of homes, but it's still a pretty high density. The lots are about 7,000 square feet, so it's a pretty close together houses, and there's just some concerns. Danville's big concern, of course, is the traffic impact. If any of you drive on Camino Tassajara in the morning, it's just really a virtual parking lot because there are so many homes that were also built. In fact, do any of you live out in Alamo Creek? Okay, well, do you know the story of Alamo Creek?
We didn't Betancourt. So
You're in Betancourt. Okay, Betancourt is county. Alamo Creek is another interesting project where the developer was negotiating with the town of Danville and didn't like what Danville was telling them, and so they said, fine, we're going to get the county to approve this. They did. Danville sued, and so the big intersection of Crow Canyon, Camino Tasajara, Blackhawk, the reason there are 3 left turn lanes and all of that signalization is that was one of the things to settle the lawsuit. And so Danville's borders end right at Diablo Vista Middle School. The playground of Diablo Vista Middle School is in the county. And so again, just one of those funny county city issues that had I been on the board, I would not have supported, because I think it's very important to respect the local control of your elected city councils rather than having a board of supervisors make those decisions. This is the Tasajara Cemetery, which is sort of going nowhere right now. Nothing's happening. The developer of it, Sid Corey, really hasn't pursued it. I keep telling the mayor of San Ramon he needs to make a land swap with Mr. Corey. Mr. Corey owns some land on the west side of San Ramon that he wants to develop some homes on. I keep saying, let him build a couple more homes where you've already got a lot of houses and keep this an open space. Big issue for me out here is the water, the aesthetic impact of putting a cemetery there. In principle, I like cemeteries. I think they're very restful, peaceful places, and I think there are some areas where they have done them in such a way where you have flat tombstones, where you have natural grass, where you really wouldn't notice it was a cemetery, and if it keeps moving forward, those would be the only circumstances in which I could support this. But we've had a lot of community concerns expressed about that. And so this is a new district attorney was appointed. So many of you are aware, this was a forum we had early August 15th. And right here, Dinah Becton, her name is spelled as if her name is Diana, but it's actually Dinah Becton, was selected as our new district attorney. And she is going to be sworn in on Monday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. And Danielle Douglas, also a judge, applied. Patrick Veneer, a San Ramon resident. Tom Kenzak, who serves in the DA's office. And Paul Graves, also in the DA's office, were the other 5 finalists for that position. Some of the things I was talking about with our environmental health is we had been restricting the sale of, in unincorporated areas, so in Alamo and parts of Walnut Creek, of flavored tobacco products. And you're always trying to balance in local government and individuals' rights to do what they want with the impact on others, and in this case, the impact on youth. And so we have restricted the sale of both menthol and fruity flavored tobacco products because they tend to be marketed toward youth, and we've restricted them when they're in your schools, parks, sensitive areas. We've also restricted the sale and placement of Alcopops. That's alcohol that is sold and marketed to look almost like soda pop, and so that's why it's called Alcopop. Again, trying to help limit the amount of youth that's going on. Currently, we have a moratorium on recreational marijuana for businesses and outdoor growing. However, we are continuing to look at that. We're going to be working with our cities to decide, do we want to allow the retail? Do we want to allow manufacturing related to it? Because, of course, under state law, it's now allowable, but cities can regulate it, and counties. And we just changed in the county our accessory dwelling unit ordinance, and this allows in unincorporated areas, if you have a lot that is 6,000 square feet or larger, you could build up to a 1,000 square foot unit house, a little extra house, accessory dwelling unit. And if you are in a lot 12,000 square feet or larger, you could build one up to 1,200 square feet. You still need to meet setback requirements, like if you have a setback of 20 feet in your backyard or 5 feet, 10 feet side yard setback, you need to do that, but you could request a variance. Now, City of San Ramon, Town of Danville, City of Dublin, every city has the ability to make those determinations of how they want to tweak it appropriately for their community. But the benefit of these laws is to create more affordable housing in a positive way. As I mentioned, we have a shortage of housing. A brilliant economist who we rely heavily on, a guy named Chris Thornburg from UCLA's Anderson School of Business, recently was speaking at an East Bay Economic Development Alliance forum. And he said, it's not that we just need to be building affordable housing, we just need to be building housing, because the market then will adjust accordingly. And so when you have a unit in all of the cities as well as the county, you're required, if you build one of these accessory dwelling units or a second unit, a granny unit, whatever you want to call it, you have to live in either the second unit or the primary house. You can't just build one and then rent both of them out. And the purpose of that is to just maintain the integrity of a neighborhood. You don't want someone just going around building two houses everywhere he or she goes. But you want to have an owner there who's concerned about the quality of who's living in the house, who's taking care of it, and making sure you have sufficient parking, other things like that. We now allow... Yes, please.
Associations, would they?
It supersedes, no, it actually, because of the way the state law, which empowered this, it supersedes most HOA requirements. And so it's an interesting one. I had that discussion with my HOA. I recently put an addition on my home. We were looking at a second unit, and as I was talking to the property management company, he said, no, all of the HOAs have determined that we have to defer to the state and the city law, and as long as you're meeting those requirements. Now, if you have a really extreme HOA, it may require showing them the state law or getting some interesting dialogue, getting your board on board with this, but it's something where we want to continue to encourage it. This is small farm animals are now allowed on small lots in unincorporated Contra Costa County. You can have chickens and hens, but you cannot have roosters, and most cities will not let you have roosters. Roosters are noisy. They don't really wake up at the crack of dawn. They wake up all night long. We're allowing small animals like goats and pigs also, and so it's going to be interesting. There's just this great resurgence of individuals who really want to have some urban farming, so allowing that. This was a controversial project. This is the county's West County Detention Facility in Richmond, and when it was built in 1990, 1991, this is what's there now. This back portion was laid out to eventually be built upon. And so there is a pad out there, and the water and the sewer and electric lines all were already laid in this area. And so the sheriff applied for a grant. Last year he had applied for an $80 million grant, which, because we were sued by the city of Richmond on CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act grounds, we were not able to receive the grant. This year we settled the CEQA issue with Richmond and did apply again for a $70 million grant, and we did receive it. We'll be moving forward with that. What it provides us the opportunity with is to help the mentally ill that continue to go through our jails. Our first goal, of course, is to keep the mentally ill out of jails, but sometimes people do end up in our facilities, and so this will have a mental health treatment facility. It will have a visitation center where you can have touch visitation. Currently at West County, you do not have that ability of families to hug each other, children to hug their parents who are incarcerated. It's also high security, and so some of our high security inmates who currently are in our very small Martinez jail are not able to avail themselves of all of the services that we provide out here for safety reasons. They can't be in this environment, which actually in these different pods, the inmates actually have keys to their cells. They have single wall construction, they share bathrooms. It's almost like a college campus, and so this high security we can have higher security inmates. Usually that's people who are gang members who won't get along with the rest of the population, those who are mentally ill or for whatever reason can't, but we can then provide them with more treatment, more programs to help them when they do get out. Historically, our jails in California were just temporary places. They were where you went when you were pending trial because you had state prison. But as the state prisons got overcrowded, the governor and the legislature in their wisdom said, well, let's give some of those low-level offenders back to the counties. And so they passed something called AB 109. And with AB 109, we are then charged with the care and custody of the low-level, the non-serious, non-sexual, non-violent offenders of the last crime they committed. So they could have all of those bad things further back in their history, but nevertheless, it's created a much bigger demand for jail space and more for rehabilitative services, because we might have somebody in our jail for 2, 3, or 4 years, whereas opposed they might be there for 60 days, 90 days. We do very proactively have shorter sentences than almost any other county in the state of California. They're called split sentences, because we do want to get people back in their community, back working. And so it's a very interesting balance trying to keep the community safe with ensuring that we have programs to really help people. And something that I really continue to push for is that we have the screening process so that we can determine who really should stay in jail, who has that sociopathic background where it's not safe to let them out, where somebody else makes a bad mistake and through education, through maybe a drug treatment program, something else, they could get back and be very helpful contributing members of society. Stepping Up Initiative is something that I've been participating in, and it's really just a national program to reduce the number of mentally ill cycling through our jails. And so what we're doing right now is we're doing kind of a mapping intercept. We're looking at every time we have an interaction through any of our county programs with someone who's mentally ill but not yet in the criminal justice system, and identifying when were those intercepts, what can we do at each of those points to help that person. Stepping Up also envisions having appropriate housing. When someone is released from jail, you need supportive housing, you need jobs, you need to have work training, all of that. And you need a level of supportive services. If they're mentally ill, they do need some additional support and help. The other thing we did implement 2 years ago, something called Vora's Law, which is assisted outpatient treatment for severely mentally ill people who don't appreciate that they, and when I say appreciate, they don't realize that they're mentally ill. You have to be over 18, you have to have either been incarcerated in jail or in a hospital, you have to be refusing treatment but still posing a danger to both yourself or the community, and then we can get them recommended to be as part of this assisted outpatient treatment program. ICE is always a huge issue, and so I have up here our sheriff's policies with regard to ICE, and certainly all of us on the Board of Supervisors are very concerned about the recent action by the President with regard to Dreamers, and we will be passing a resolution in support of the Dreamers in our community. I am very hopeful that Congress will find a good solution quickly, because it does put so much pressure on our families, and particularly our youth who have grown up here but have not lived in other countries. But nevertheless, we want that balance. And so the sheriff has right here, he doesn't detain, of course, or arrest anyone based on their immigration status. Sheriff deputies don't participate in ICE sweeps, but they will, if requested, within 48 hours, notify of someone who's going to be released if they're a serious or violent offender. And I think most people agree, if someone is here illegally in the country, they've committed a serious or violent crime, we don't want them here anymore, and there's no reason not to deport them. We do keep people out in our West County Detention Facility in this jail. Since 1991, we have had a contract with ICE where we could house up to 200 ICE detainees. We do get some money for that. It generates a net of about $3 million. Interestingly, when you talk to immigration lawyers, and I was even a few months ago at an event with the Consul General of Mexico, they all say they have never seen as nice a detention facility because there are programs and people are able to see their families. And that doesn't say it's great to be picked up by ICE or anything else, but nevertheless, it's a very humane way to help people who are pending a hearing before our federal authorities, magistrates on these issues. I just point out through that jail thing, these beds could not be used for mental health treatment because they were not in a secure facility. They, very thin walls. For a mental health cell, you need to have your own restroom within it. You have to have very secure jail cells. And so it wasn't that we could just get rid of the ICE contract and rehab those cells. Public safety, huge issue for the county. We've got, in my district alone, I've got 3 different fire agencies: the Moraga-Orinda Fire, that's over Moraga and Orinda, San Ramon Valley Fire, which of course is San Ramon, Danville, Alamo area, and then we have Contra Costa Fire. And most of our fire districts are funded through property taxes, and at different degrees, because when Prop 13 went into being back in 1978, everyone got frozen in time, and San Ramon Valley Fire really lucked out. They get about 16, 17 cents of every property tax dollar. Moraga-Orinda, depending upon which city you're in, gets significantly less, and out in East County, they get even less. CERT is a great program. Is anyone here CERT trained? Has anyone done CERT training? This is San Ramon, my husband, Phil. Thank you. And he does other things. I've got to thank my husband also. He's actually a very competent lawyer, does a lot of volunteer service. He's the president of the Contra Costa Bar Association, and really does more than just follow his wife around. But he is CERT trained. So CERT is where you prepared for a disaster, and San Ramon Valley Fire offers a free 6-week course where you get trained and everything from assessing the safety of the building, significant first aid. So we've just seen the hurricanes that have taken place in Texas and Florida. You're not going to get help really quickly in a disaster. You're on your own, and if you've got CERT-trained volunteers in your neighborhood, you're going to be that much better off. And I was just going to highlight here, this is one of our Contra Costa Family Justice Centers. We have one in Concord that serves this area. It's a place where victims of abuse, women, children, or men who need help can go there, where there's law enforcement, district attorneys, support services, housing to help individuals who are in need. Confire, this doesn't apply, we don't have the same numbers in San Ramon, but for 2016 we had 904 suspicious fires, almost 500 of them were intentionally set. So there are arsonists out there, and last year we had 25 arrests, and that's in this more central Contra Costa area. We always are looking to get people on the bus. County Connection is Wi-Fi enabled. You can use your Clipper card. We're a bus trackers to tell you when the next bus is coming. If we're ever going to relieve the congestion, we're going to need to continue to get more of us out of our cars and into a bus. And we're working on a program on 680 to increase park and rides. We almost had state legislation last year to run buses on the shoulder of the freeway when traffic slows to under 35 miles per hour. It's a pilot that's been done down in Monterey, it's been done in Minnesota, and it's an efficient way to have an express bus be an even more desirable mode of transportation. We keep working on improving our trails. San Ramon is getting ready. This is one of their renditions to do an overpass on Bollinger Canyon Road, and I've been working to add a bike lane. It's a dedicated bike lane on the Iron Horse Trail. And so we're doing a study right now to see, here where we've got all the shady area, if you ever go on the Iron Horse Trail, to just have a place for bikes, bicycle expressway, and eventually connect up with, as best we can, with Lafayette, Moraga regional trails as well, so that we can have more people using alternate means of transportation, walking, riding, rather than just their cars. As I mentioned, general purpose revenue is about $385 million. As you can see, the major portion of that in bright blue is our property taxes. And this is just showing you where our property taxes have gone. Sales tax makes a much smaller component of that. And this shows you the percentage change last year in property taxes. We increased about 6%, and you can see, areas such as San Ramon, Danville have remained fairly stable in that 5 to 6% range. Some areas, though, like Knightson, just shot up with property values going up 20%. Post-recession, we saw in East County, Oakley, Brentwood, those areas is where we saw the huge increase in property taxes. But because we went through the big recession, our total net increase over the past 8 years only averaged 1.9%. And it's been 5.4% over the past 5 years. We see it sort of stabling out around 5 to 6%. What we're having is because there aren't as many properties being sold, you're not seeing as many properties turn over where they're going to be reassessed. And where new properties are coming on board, we still have some in the Doherty Valley, and we still have some out in unincorporated East Danville, and of course way out in East County in Oakley and Brentwood. That's where we're seeing the greater increase. And this just gives you the sales tax, not a huge amount of sales tax, but this sort of tells you where we're going. This last year, autos and transportations declined before they were a little bit higher, but still business and industry is doing very, very well. Fuel service stations, as fuel prices go back up, some county and state pools of taxes. The challenge for sales tax is the internet. And even though if you buy something on Amazon, you pay a sales tax, the state has an interesting formula that none of us have quite figured out yet of who gets it at what proportion. And we don't always get it entirely proportional. And we use sales tax as something that we use quite a bit for some of our transportation measures because we have a half-cent sales tax in place through our transportation authority. Economic development is a huge issue for the county. We are recruiting right now for a new economic development director. But one of our initiatives is out what we call the northern waterfront. So Hercules, Martinez, Concord, Pittsburgh, Antioch, Oakley, they're all right there on the bay. They have shipping terminals where boats, large boats, can get in there with a little dredging, even larger boats could. You also have rail going right through there for goods movement. And so we're doing a big push to look at advanced manufacturing, cleaner technology that might be manufactured up there. And so we're hoping to see that happen. We did just pass Clean Choice and Community Choice Energy, and we joined Marin Clean Energy, or MCE, and so that is an opportunity to start creating some more sources for developing energy, whether it be solar, whether it be wind within the county, to sell to MCE, which then gives you as the consumer. San Ramon is also leaning toward MC as well, and Danville has. Then you have cleaner, greener types of energy, but it's still delivered through your PG&E lines. And then these are just some of the East Bay Leadership Council, East Bay EDA, Economic Partnership, our business affiliates that we work with, the groups with cities, counties together to try to increase economic development. Unemployment, all-time low. You can see compared for the entire state, we're hovering around 4.1%. Economists will tell you that when you get down that low, it makes it very challenging for people to really fill those minimum wage jobs. You've also, what happens when you have unemployment that low is it even makes it just a little bit more challenging for businesses to grow, to find the right employees to move forward. But we're pleased that it's gotten so low, but you can still see there are parts of the county where we need to continue to work with workforce development. And so small pockets, Pacheco, both Antioch has a little bit higher, you get to Bay Point. You do have some areas that are still hovering, almost at 8.5%. And so we continue to work with both starting very young, middle school, high school, trying to help engage people on a career path so that when they leave school, they'll have either an education to move forward to or a career. And this is our homeless population, and this is just called a homeless point in time count, which we did back in January 25th. It showed that we have about just over 1,600 people experiencing homelessness that we were able to count. And I will tell you that every community, every city in the county does have homeless people. They're just not as visible. Homelessness also, even if you are sleeping on someone's sofa and you don't have your own home, that's considered homeless as well. And so we have people sheltered who are about 43% do have some sort of shelter to be in, whether they're in a homeless shelter or someone's sofa. 57% of those individuals, though, had no house. And so we've got families. One concern is we have a growing senior population that as rents get so expensive, it's getting harder for them, some people on a fixed income, to stay in their homes. What we have started is Contra Costa County's coordinated entry model, which is to really help house the homeless, get them the services they need. Of course, oftentimes homeless people might have a mental illness, they might have an addictive addiction problem that could create the problem. If you see someone who is homeless, something that looks out of place, you can call 211. And 211 will connect you with our homeless program. They can send out a team to go engage with that person, see how they can help them. We have now care centers where it's a reentry center. It's a center where someone can go sign up for different services. And then we have these core groups that are coordinated outreach and referral engagement teams. And these go out with police officers. And they're out there looking for the people underneath the bridges, people who might be having a little bit of an issue out in public. And so these core teams, several of our cities now, for example, Concord and Martinez are both paying $100,000 for a core officer to work with them. And then we, of course, try to find them at least interim housing with the goal being permanent housing for our homeless. This was a statistic from last year that I found really shocking, and it just goes to show how oftentimes our homeless population is missing out on health care. So last year, we spent $45 million in health care expenses for the homeless. 88% used up just $13 million. 12% used up 2/3 of that money. 12% of the homeless used the $32 million. And so we are doing much, much greater outreach of those individuals who are the high frequency ER visits, etc., to try to get them preventive care, to get them into services. And this is, I'm just talking a little bit about pension. You can't see the top of the slide, but what it's talking about is Contra Costa's different changes that we made in our pension to lower our unfunded liability. And so when I took office, we had in 2012, we had about a $2.1 billion unfunded liability for our pensions. It's now cut down to $1.2 billion, and we're about 86% funded, but it's still a problem. It's a challenge to have unfunded liabilities because what happens is people are promised in government really generous pensions, but they might not pay into their pension before it's time to retire. And a good example of it was back very soon after 9/11, where we all felt this great support of our first responders. CHP came up with this idea of, well, let's do what's called 3% at 50. So when I'm 50 years old, I can retire if I'm a law enforcement officer with 3% of my salary for every year I work. And you look at their final year salary. And so, in essence, they're getting 90% of their final year salary, and then they could find different ways to sort of add on a few other things. But what happened is a lot of officers, as soon as that went into place, just said, oh, I'm going to retire today. You know, I don't need to wait. I'm 50 now. I don't have to wait till I'm 56 or 54 or 55, whatever my old retirement age, but they weren't paying into it. So it created this huge gap in unfunded liability. We're doing much, much better in our county, but it's still not perfect, and it's just something where for every sheriff, we spend as much on their salary as we do on their benefits, and that's just the reality. It's a challenge. This shows you that we've got some deferred maintenance of about $165 million of county buildings and things that we're continuing to try to improve. We will be tearing down in the next year our beautiful, we always call it the Soviet-era architecture building. If you've been in there, it's not so pretty a building. You know, built in the 1950s. It's only about a third of it is actually used right now because it's so antiquated. It will be pulled down, and we will be building a much lower, more efficient, energy-efficient building, one that will fit better into downtown Martinez. And then at the same time, we will also, up in the upper part of Martinez, this is Highway 4 to Martinez, be building a new emergency operations center. The Sheriff's Department has a very antiquated emergency operations center, and so we need to update that as well. I always encourage people to be prepared. And Nixle, how many of you are signed up for Nixle with your city police department? Okay, a few of you. If you're not on Nixle, your police will send you a text when anything significant is coming on. What about Pulse Point? Who has Pulse Point? Few of you have Pulse Point. More if you need. Okay, you what?
I break the original one.
Okay. Well, it's a wonderful app, isn't it? Pulse Point will not only tell you where the fire trucks are going, but if you're CPR trained, it will summon you when someone nearby is having a cardiac arrest. And it was started by our former fire chief for San Ramon Valley when he was at a restaurant here in San Ramon and with one of his captains, and suddenly they saw a fire truck pull up. And they wondered what was going on, and it turned out that someone in the shop next door was having a heart attack. And had they been alerted, of course, they could have come immediately, rendered first aid. And now you just register if you know CPR, and you will be alerted when something's happening. And then COCO CWS is our emergency warning system. It's the reverse 911. Most people they're not home, for one thing, or they don't have a landline. So I'm always encouraging people to go onto COCO CWS to register your cell phones for texts or phone messages so you can be advised when there's an emergency. And even, we had an example a couple of years ago where a young man, an autistic boy, got lost shopping. And so a store clerk who had COCO CWS got the reverse 911 call on her cell phone over at Sun Valley Mall and had just seen that boy. And so she was able to contact the authorities. So it's very helpful. Restaurant food safety, I was talking about our environmental health. Who has the Food Inspector app? Does anyone have Food Inspector? You got to download the Food Inspector app. What that is it's our county's app, and it will give you the entire food, health, safety of any restaurant in the county. So right now, if someone downloads that app and pulls up Buffalo Wild Wings, you'll know are there hand washing violations, cockroaches, things like you may not want to know, but nevertheless, it's there for your, impress your friends. And then we have the red, yellow, and green passes that we now use. Never go into a restaurant if it's red. It means it's supposed to be closed. Yellow means, they had a problem. Green is what you want to see when you go into a restaurant. And then I'm always looking for people to serve on advisory boards, and these are some of my District 2 and county-wide volunteer boards and commissions. If you're ever interested, take my card and we can see if there are any boards or commissions that you might be interested in. Of course, your cities all have boards and commissions too that are a great way to get started if you're interested in serving in local government. This is, oh yes, I'm sorry, Andy, yes.
Actually, I'm on that Managed Care Commission.
Oh, are you on the Managed Care Commission? Good for you. I'm glad you are, Andy. No, it's on here. I'm sorry. I'll go back to my list of, there's some, and so how do you like serving on the Managed Care Commission?
I love it. I learn a lot and see how the health care works or the medical works, how we serve the people needed.
Yes. They're very interesting commissions. I always advise people to go to a committee or commission meeting first one time so you can just sort of see what they're talking about if you're interested. Sometimes the dynamics can be unusual too, and so you want to see if it's a good fit.
Yeah,
but I
help the community. I can bring back the information what I learned there, tell the community, hey, you have parents need a translator, it's all provided for free.
Yes.
Also like hepatitis C.
Right, there are some amazing things that we're doing in our healthcare system. We, as I mentioned, we have a county hospital, county health clinics that we administer, and my great staff. Many of you see Gail around, and San Ramon resident, and Jen Qualick, also a San Ramon resident, and Lori Byers, my scheduler, and she helps me with Lafayette, and then Jill Ray handles a lot of my La Marinda areas, as well as my criminal justice issues. These are my two main offices, one in Lafayette and the main one in Danville. And if you don't get my newsletter, take my card, shoot me an email. Once a month, I send out an e-newsletter about what's going on in the county, what's going on in District 2. I don't bombard you with sales pitches or, stupid jokes, things like that. It's just really, it's a very informational about what's going on in Contra Costa County. So that is my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So any questions? So we have time maybe for 3, I think.
Yes.
So in San Ramon, we pay about 3 different taxes, right?
Yes.
And Doherty Valley is a very unique tax structure. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Well, I can tell you there's an M29 district, and M29 was, it's a tax that goes into Doherty Valley to provide for all kinds of different services, because when the Doherty Valley was built, of course, there was nothing there, and so it can be used for police, it can be used for infrastructure, for road improvements, everything. And so the way it works is the county collects the tax, and then the developer gives the county kind of a list of needs that they want the taxes spent on. City of San Ramon gives us a list. We then write a check and then go through this process every year. And so there is a balance in there that's eventually supposed to use for capital projects within the area. I've been working with my county staff. My goal is, once Doherty Valley is completely built out, is to turn the M29 back to the city of San Ramon and have them completely administer it themselves. There's no reason to have them have to go through the county once we're completely built out. And so the development, this Doherty Valley Settlement Agreement does not provide for that yet, but it's something that I think all of the parties, as I've glanced at it, I'm having my county council do a better analysis, but it looks like it's something we should be able to do, to put the money directly back into San Ramon's hands rather than the counties. So that's what we're working for. I'm very big on local control and not having the county be an intermediary if we don't need to be. Any other questions? Yes.
So earlier you mentioned about developers going to the county when they cannot get the approval from the city.
Yes.
So what is the hierarchy, I guess? Under what circumstances does the developer go to the county, and does the county override the cities?
That's a very good question. I don't think I made it clear enough. In fact, if I go back, I'm going to go way back to the beginning. What you have is you have city boundaries, and within the city boundaries, the city, and I'm going right to the beginning, city boundaries, they have complete jurisdiction over what happens to them. But then you have these unincorporated pockets. And so, for example, right here on here's Blackhawk. So right here where I was showing you that Tasajara Parks. So on Camino Tasajara, Betancourt Ranch is county land. Now Danville would have liked to have incorporated Betancourt Ranch. And once you annex land in, then you, the city, gets to decide what you want to do with it. But the county, particularly Contra Costa County, not all counties are like this. Contra Costa County had no problem just saying, oh yeah, we'll just develop it. You know, Blackhawk, no need to annex it into a city, we'll just let you develop it. Many counties, for example, Santa Clara County, early on in my career, I also served on Morgan Hills City Council in the early 1990s, and Santa Clara County was very strict, saying, we don't want you building in unincorporated areas. We'd rather have you annexed into a city and then let the city make the land use decision. And so there are some pockets of unincorporated areas. For example, well, Alamo's a big pocket, but Walnut Creek, I've got, Saranap, Parkmead. They're just, one side of the street will be city, one side of the street will be county. And you would think that the cities would want to annex in these islands so they would have control, but the challenge is that many of these homes were built 50, 60 years ago, and so there may not be sidewalks, the sewer system may need upgrades, the roads may not be kept to the same standards of the city, and so they don't want to annex it in if it's just going to be a very expensive item for them. West side of San Ramon, we have quite a few little pockets, and I have strongly encouraged any developers trying to develop to work with San Ramon and have the county annex the land to San Ramon, because the county really does not provide services. So we can't override a city's decision, but if we have an unincorporated area, we have the legal right to go ahead and allow development on it per our zoning, per our general plan, and we can just essentially ignore what a city wants. And to me, that's not good planning practice, and that's not good government. So we really don't override a city, and my goal is to work cooperatively with them. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. You're welcome. Yes, Marcia.
Well, I have a question about the high-density vehicle lanes.
Yes. Oh, yes, and we could talk about the toll lanes. Are you talking about the toll lanes or the HOV lanes? Yes.
Well, first, how much is it going to be?
That's, it's priced based upon how many cars are there and the time of day. A good indication of what they're going to cost, if you've noticed as you drive down 680, they'll have a number up there, but then they'll say no charge. That's a good indication based on the volume of traffic of what they're going to set them at. At peak demand times, they're going to set them pretty high because they're going to do that mainly because more people, they want to balance how many people end up in the toll lanes. If you get too many people in the toll lane, then it defeats the whole purpose of a high occupancy vehicle. The benefit of it disappears. So they tend to be a little bit higher. And then there are some times when there are so many cars in those lanes that they might exclude toll drivers, or they have the ability to exclude people who have even the stickers on their cars as well. So our biggest concern was when they first presented them to our end of the county, they said, we're going to do them just for carpool hours. We're going to do them from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. And then they went in, and all of a sudden we saw they're going to do them all day. They're going to be doing them from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so we called up Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We had them come to several transportation meetings. Their argument for doing them all day is they want to be consistent with the toll lanes on the Sunol grade and that they now have on 580. Problem with that is when they did 580, they added a whole nother travel lane. Here we're not adding a travel lane, so we're very concerned about it causing increased congestion. People have often asked me about these toll lanes. Initial studies that I saw 3 years ago showed that you have two cars, one in the toll lane, one not, trying to go from point A to point B. Even if you don't get in the toll lane, you would still get there a little bit faster than you would have otherwise, because you're freeing up capacity in the non-toll lanes because more people are shifting to the toll lane. However, when MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, made this decision, they did a study that showed keeping them open all day may start the backup on 680, particularly in Danville, starting at 2 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. And so we're all very wary. They claim they will be able to adjust it. They'll be able to do no tolls, or they'll be able to reduce it so much that more people will get over there. But it really is not only a way to get people faster to one place to another, but it's a congestion management tool to really sort of manage how many cars are in all of the lanes. So right, late as I heard, they're supposed to open in October. They were supposed to open this month, and now we're looking at October for their opening. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
I live in the unincorporated area of Sacramento County.
Yes. And I have no control over you.
And how do you see the difference of running unincorporated area in the rural area from your area?
Well, it's interesting because I have a few rural areas in my district, such as Canyon and some parts of Moraga. And there you want to be very respectful, particularly of agricultural lands. And that's something that throughout the state of California, we want to continue to have a very strong agricultural base. And so our general plan, which is sort of our roadmap for how the county should be run, developed from a land use standpoint, generally protects agricultural lands. And so in a more rural area, you probably have much larger lot sizes, similar to what is out in the Tassajara Valley, where it might be what they call, R20 or R40 or even R80, where you cannot have, 1 unit per 80 acres or 1 unit per 40 acres. And so you tend to just be very conscientious of what does the community want, what are the community's goals, and how do you zone and adjust your general plan accordingly. So little depends what part of unincorporated Sacramento, but Sacramento is continuing to grow quickly. Housing continues, your property values are going up very quickly there, and I think you'll continue to see demand on some of the more rural land for people to want to develop. And you find developers will purchase land 20, 30 years ahead of when they think they'll actually need them, because it's so inexpensive to buy a piece of agricultural land, relatively speaking, and they just sort of hope that in time with development that they will be more valuable. Any other questions, comments?
So maybe one last question?
Yes. I don't think anyone has one last question, so that's okay. We're done. So thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Supervisor Candace. And I think we still have time. I mean, people can stay here. We can ask questions. I think the supervisor, you stay here. Thank you so much. And so for now, if you can just please finish your survey. They have a pen here. And also, we would like to have a group photo for this event. So people come to the front desk, have a group photo. After that, it's more, the supervisor, Anderson, has the business card here. Yeah, so just take the card, send her the email, she will respond. So just get connected. I'm registered. I think I receive the email from you like every month.
Once a month.
So do I expect to see this event on that next email?
You should.
Okay, we'll see us the group photo.
Absolutely. We've got to have the great group photo.
Oh, thank you. So let's come to the front after that, and feel free to do the networking. Thank you.
Let's put some chairs.
Okay.
Oh, you're so good at organizing,
Yeah.
Marsha.
This is the second. So, Candace.
Stand up here.
People, please come to the front. Let's shoot the photo.
Yeah, this one.
I want to separate you.
You want to separate my Let's see.
We have we have someone. Pick another chair. Yeah, okay.
No, our phones, because we cannot have it on.
And then I will take yours.
Come here, Lauren. Come here. Douglas. Hurry up.
Amy.
Yes, you can tell us happy.
Hurry up, people, hurry up. Okay.
Okay. Say one. Cheers.
Many cameras.
One, 2, 3, 5. Okay. Last one. Hold on. Okay.
Video camera. Yeah, make sure you take it with the big camera.
Yeah. Exactly. Sorry. Right. This one. Look at this one.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Ah! Another one.
Let's take one more.
3, 2, 1.
You have everyone? Good. Thank you, everyone.
You want to come and take a picture with? Oh.
We can take more.
That's not this one Where's your camera? No.
把钱放我这个兜里。
单对再对是吧？那就是现在钱多少个就好，反正有一点。对。
Great to see you. Nice to see you too. I was actually in your office, but I don't know. Good job on that production. I left her. I came in to leave her some coffee and going back. Yeah, so I'm going to come for check here.
Will you email me?